What's going on, YouTube? Mr. Wheels here, bringing you another episode of Sports Talk, and part two of my preseason preview, and part two of the previewing the Atlantic Division in the NHL. Now, if you want to see the part featuring the Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, and Ottawa Senators, please watch the first part of this, which was a preview of all 7 Canadian teams. Now, in this episode, we'll feature the Boston Bruins, Buffalo Sabres, Detroit Red Wings, Florida Panthers, and Tampa Bay Lightning. And to get started, let's start with the Boston Bruins. Now, last year the Bruins got all the way to the Cup final and lost eventually to Chicago. And I think if they're going to be successful again this year, they got a good chance to do it. But the first part of their success needs to begins and ends basically with Tuukka Rask. He needs to have another huge year, and he is my favorite pick for the Vezina Trophy. And I think the bigger question with the Bruins goaltending is who backs up Tuukka Rask. Now, in the preseason so far, Malcolm Subban has been in the nets. He played against his brother PK over the weekend, and there's some speculation that he might make the roster, but I think he's still a little bit too young. So, as I know right now, the backup will be a guy by the name of Chad Johnson. I don't know who this guy is. I haven't really ever heard of him. So I think they have some question marks there, but they've really lucked out with Tuukka Rask and the goalie that he's become. So they should do all right in that. And their key off-season acquisitions let me first say they're going to really hurt or really miss guys like Andrew Ference and Tyler Seguin this year. Seguin maybe not so much with all the off-ice controversy, but I think the question with their new additions of Drew McGinley and Louis Eriksson are can Louis Eriksson fill the role that Nathan Horton left, because Nathan Horton went to Columbus. If this team is going to be successful, their top line, whoever that ends up being, maybe David Krejci, Milan Lucic, and Jerome McGinley, I don't know, or a combination of their core players, the top line is really going to have to carry the team. Their strengths are obviously they have a solid number 1 goalie in Tuukka Rask. Their core group is still together, and they have a very experienced defense. Guys that have lots of playoff experience, so that won't hurt them. Their weaknesses, as I already touched on a little bit, Louis Eriksson, can he be the type of power forward that Nathan Horton was? I think he might struggle a little bit, maybe early on, to get used to his new team, but we'll see. Again, the backup goalie questions, will the media make a goaltending controversy out of who backs up Tuukka Rask? Who knows? And mainly the other weakness that I see this team potentially having is their bottom 6 may struggle to produce. I'm not saying they won't score goals, but they didn't produce a whole lot last year, even though it was a shortened season, so they may struggle this year. And they're an aging team. Like, the Bruins are one of the best teams in the league right now, but you got to ask yourself, do they have enough left in the tank for another cup run? And despite their weaknesses, they're still my favorite to win the division and possibly contend for leading the conference. So moving on to the Buffalo Sabres. Again, let's start with their goaltending situation. Ryan Miller. From what I saw last year, he had a horrible season last year. The whole team did. Their chemistry was off. But the question is, will Ryan Miller bounce back? I think he has everything to prove, considering what happened last year, and it's an Olympic year. So the question will be, can he rise to the occasion and not only help the Sabres win, but get a spot on the Olympic team? And there's no real new notable additions to this team. Their keys to success, I think, are Thomas Vanek is going to have to put up some huge numbers. Obviously, Ryan Miller's going to have to stand on his head. The main strength to the Sabres is they have a lot of young prospects, and I guess those are the new additions. Guys like Miguel Grigorenko and Cody Hodgson, who's been there for a while, but they do have some good prospects coming up. I'm not going to name them all because I kind of forget who they all are, but I see them as a team of the future. They're not really going to contend right now because I think they lack experience. And their weaknesses, I just don't see their defense being good enough. Yeah, they got guys like Tyler Myers and Chris Nierenhoff and that, but they're really going to struggle. I think just completely as a team in the near future. Or in the present. In the near future, they will be a very good team, but they need to add some more veteran leadership. They've lost a few guys, so that's going to hurt them. I don't see them making the playoffs because I think they're still going to struggle with chemistry this year. So they will be on the outside of the playoff picture at the end of the regular season. Moving on to the Red Wings, despite Howard having a good season last year and proving that he can be a playoff goalie and help the Red Wings win, I think he still has something to prove. That he's worth the contract that he signed. And Jonas Gustafsson, I don't think he belongs in the NHL. And I think if he's going to prove his worth, he needs to step up and either take the number one job or be prepared to split the games, play up to 40 games with Jimmy Howard. And let's talk a little bit about the new additions to the team. Obviously, they signed Daniel Alfredsson, and I don't think this guy is worth $5.5 million. I think they should have signed Valtteri Filppula, to maybe even a one-year deal to have Filppula on the team would have been nice, but he left, and they signed Stephen Weiss to probably the contract that they would have signed Filppula too. So these guys are really going to help the team. They're really going to be deep at the center position, and they have depth scoring still. And they've got prospects coming up like Tomas Tatar and Landon Ferrero. They're another one of these teams that has their core group of guys together and can produce two good top scoring lines. Now, that being said, they got to keep producing. The Red Wings struggled last season, mainly defensively, but they just got to be consistent and produce. Their strengths, they have probably the best, or one of the best top six forwards, or their top six are one of the best in the league. And they probably got the best fourth line, or potential fourth line, of Cody Emerton, Patrick Eaves, and Jordan Tutu. That would be my suggestion for their fourth line. I think they would be very productive. And they've got a solid bottom six, like, guys like Joachim Anderson and Gustav Nyquist. And obviously, like I said, they got some young prospects coming up that'll probably be in the bottom six. So they look really good that way. Their weaknesses are mainly that I see they're defensive. Since Nick Lindstrom left, they really haven't been the same team. And another weakness for these guys are getting older and injuries. Are they going to be able to to withstand the injury bug. And like I already touched on, consistency, and that's the problem. That's a question for a lot of teams. But that being said, I think the streak of 23 years making it into the playoffs will become a reality for the Red Wings. Moving on to the Sunshine State, starting with the Florida Panthers. Their goaltending situation. Do they have a clear-cut number one goalie? Jacob Markstrom, or Jakob Markstrom, however he says that. He struggled a little bit last year, and I don't think he really proved that he can be a solid number one goalie and play 40 to 50 games. So if you haven't heard already, the Panthers gave Tim Thomas a professional tryout, and I think, he's getting up there too. They still have Scott Clemenson that they could maybe rely on for a few games. But I think the reason why Thomas is there is to push Markstrom to be the goalie that they think he will emerge to be. And they really only signed Michael Frolik in the offseason, and he will help the team with his leadership and playoff experience and just coming off winning a Stanley Cup. I don't think he'll score a lot of goals, but the Panthers are a young team. They have a lot of prospects, and they have a good, solid. They got a lot of good young defensemen. So they're going to be another team in the future, and this year they're going to be fast. Like I said, they have a solid defense core with a mix of veterans and young guys that have been there for a while. Probably one of the better defense cores in the league. But their weaknesses, I think, will be in a lot of areas. Scoring. Are they going to score enough goals to actually hang on to leads and win games? Because, the team is still... they look like it's like every other team's throwaway players that just landed in Florida. Guys like Sean Bergenheim, Chris Versteeg, guys that are really underrated. You can add Michael Frolik in there as well, because I think Chicago should have probably tried to hang on to him, but they didn't. So, are they going to score enough goals? Who's their number one goalie? Is it going to be Tim Thomas? Because if it is, who knows? They might. If he has another season left, a good season left in him, he might help them make the playoffs. Who knows? But are they going to be consistent enough to be, in that 8th and final playoff spot? I don't think they will be. I think, it'll take them another couple of years. At best, they'll be a bubble team. And moving on to the last team, Florida State rivals, the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is another situation in goal. Everyone says the Leafs have a goaltending controversy with Reimer and Bernier. Well, let's look at the Lightning for a minute. Ben Bishop and Anders Lindback. Now, the obvious choice there is they got Ben Bishop to be the number one goalie and starter, but that's not written in stone yet. And I think that's going to be it's going to make for a lot of conversation during the season. And their new additions, probably the biggest steal they could have ever got. I know. Well, let's first talk about their departures. Vincent Lecavalier. There's no easy way to replace a franchise player and your long-standing captain, but Valtteri Filppula is a playmaking center, still only 27 years old, and if you put him between Martin St-Louis and Steven Stamkos, you would have one hell of a top line, and that's where good teams usually start their offensive, or where they become successful, is they have at least a clear-cut top line. the keys to success for this team that I see is whoever makes up their top line is going to have to carry the team offensively. The strength of the team is that you can now say with Fufala, if he ends up being their number one center, or on the top line with Stamkos and St. Louis, that they actually have a top line. Their weaknesses I see being their defense, and I also see a possibility that they lack depth, and not only depth in general, but scoring depth. And I don't think they will make the playoffs. They will be another one of these teams that'll be on the bubble near the end of the season, but they won't make the playoffs, in my opinion. So that concludes part 2 of the preseason preview and wraps up a look at the Atlantic Division. Stay tuned for the other 3 divisions. I also wanted to say, hit the like button, subscribe if you like if you like these videos. Follow me on Facebook at Mr. Wheels 86 and on Twitter at Sledgehead86. Okay, talk to you later.